Kayam dollar Kinze Rabone, Tamisum to Tony Rabzoshin. Tony, Tamisum Tony Rabzos, Tonsum Magician pay you attention, Shagatola Chaselos. With salutation to Lord Buddha. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizing team members, particularly Kumotile Chugila, for inviting Tibet Museum at Geneva Forum 2026. So the exhibition that you have seen outside are broadly categorized into two different exhibitions. First one is the brief biography of His Holiness Dalai Lama, and the second one is Mapping Tibet. On the brief biography of His Holiness Dalai Lama, we brought around 200 different images of His Holiness Dalai Lama, and it is further subdivided into 5 main sub-themes, starting with the early life and responsibility of His Holiness Dalai Lama, capturing the reincarnation to recognition, and enthronement and Lhasa to exile in India. And the second sub-part is about meeting with the Indian leaders. And the third one is meeting with the world leaders. He has extensively traveled across 62 different countries in more than 500 times. And in 1973 onwards to the Europe, and 1979 onwards to America, he had not only met politicians, but he has also met the humanitarian, literature, and also the religious leader. And the fourth category is on the awards and accolades that His Holiness Dalai Lama have won. And till date, there are 342 different awards that His Holiness is being conferred, including the recent Grammy Award. And this other part is also there are citizenship, there are keys that is conferred to His Holiness Dalai Lama. And of all these awards, the 3 main awards are Nobel Peace Prize and US Congressional Gold Medal and Templeton Awards. And the 5th main part is on the 4 principal commitment of His Holiness Dalai Lama, starting with the first one as promotion of universal responsibility, promotion of the human values, and the second one is promotion of interreligious harmony, and the third one is to safeguard and secure the fragile ecology of Tibet, and also to safeguard the unique and rich culture heritage of Tibet. And the fourth one is revival of ancient Indian knowledge. And the second exhibition that we brought here is on Mapping Tibet, and there are so many institutions and individual contributors, but the main contributor are Sri Wangeshawala, who is the GIS expert from Princeton University, and Gianni Vanita, former senator and undersecretary of Foreign Affairs in Italy. And I'm deeply thankful to both of these contributors. So what I'll try to show is through this different 6th century till to the 20th century, each century I will cover one by one, and the 20th century we will further divide it into the early part of 20th, mid, and the later part of 20th century. So starting with the 16th and the 17th century, the first map that we have captured is in 1522 by the German cartographer Laurent Fraisse. So this is the map inspired from Marco Polo expedition to the Eastern world, where Tibet is clearly shown, and Cambodia is shown as Pro-Bogat, and Japan is shown as the Zingpuri. And the top right, there is a tent which shows the Mongol Khan as the superpower. And most of the cartographers during this century are German, Italian, Flemish, and Low Countries. So nature of the involvement by the early European cartographer are mostly during this century are knowledge seeker, and also about the imagination of the Eastern world, and also the awareness building of the Eastern world. But rarely there are any maps which talks about the politics and the military. And the second image that I want to show you, or the map that I want to show you, is the 17th century map in the year 1680 by the Dutch cartographer Peter van der Aa. And he represents Tibet as Kingdom of Barontola. So Barontola is the Mongolian term, which means the right side of Mongolia. So here, the map tried to show the country in reference to the Great Mongolia. And other few nomenclatures that were used during these centuries are Tibet Regnum, Tibet, But on all of these maps, Tibet is completely shown different or separate entity from the China, and most of the cartographers during this period are Dutch, Italian, Flemish, and French. And then we will talk about the 18th and 19th century, the map. So the early part of the 18th century, under the leadership of French Jesuit Father Jean-Baptiste Regis, he commissioned Manchu China to make the first scientific map of Tibet in 1707. But he rejected it, and then he recruited two Lama from 1715 to 1717. And they were trained, and they took the data from Xining in northeast till to Lhasa, and also to source the Ganga as well. And then finally in 1721, the map that you see on the top left is commissioned. It is known as the Kangxi Imperial Map. And then the bottom right is the 1737, the new Atlas of China, which is done by another French Jesuit, Jean-Baptiste Bourguignon. So the bottom line is the European atlases start adopting the Manchu map, but still portray Tibet as a different country or different entity. And these are another few examples from the same century by the Britishers, Italian, and the French. But Tibet is mostly shown as the Grand Tibet or the state of Dalai Lama, but it was mostly not shown as the entity of China. And the nature of involvement of this cartographer during this century are more scientific and diplomatic and knowledge seeker, but hardly any map talk about the annexation. And then we dwell into this 19th century, which sees most of the map as the exploration and espionages and survey, because during that time the peak of colonial era boundary awareness was at top, and the entrance of the American cartographer is also seen. The map that you see on the left-hand side is the Arrowsmith from the British in 1810, and on the right-hand side is the 1835 Bradford, who is the American cartographer. Both of them shown Tibet as the completely different nation. So in this century, Tibet becomes the central to British India's strategic geopolitical. And two of the more maps is one on the left is the two British representatives, George Bogley and Samuel Turner, who was sent to the mission to Shigaze, where George Bogley met 6th Panchen Lama, and this led to the first the boundary between Tibet and Bhutan. And on the right, you see the map done by the Oliver J. Strout, who is the American cartographer, which is handwritten, hand coloring shows Tibet as an independent entity. In the same century, later part of the same century, one of the interesting thing done by the British India is the series of the British India sent a series of pundits as a secret surveyor to Tibet during the Great Game. So it is particularly between 1865 to 1868. So the image that you see is the Nain Singh Rawat, who is the trained cartographer from the Uttarakhand district, and they disguised as a pilgrim, and he worked under the survey of India as strategic and geopolitical context. So how they measure is each step that they took is 33 inch in size. So they were trained in such a way, and for 200 steps is equivalent to 1 miles. And most of these pundits, they have a rosary which is not of 108, but almost all of them have 100 beads in their rosary, so that this can be eased for their calculation. Compass readings were hidden inside the prayer wheels. Altitude data are memorized and written in codes and chants. Why it matters is because in 1866, Nain Singh Rawat reached Lhasa and became the first non-Tibetan to accurately record its location and Himalayan altitude. Along with other pundits like Kishan Singh Rawat, Lala Sarat Chandra Das, they mapped Tibet bead by bead and earning the name Human GPS of the 19th century. So now we will enter into the early part of the 20th century where political boundaries and treaties and military conflicts were very prevailing, and Tibet acts as a treaty signing political entity. So this is the first map of 1900 by the Royal Geographic Society, which integrates or which is a derivative of those pundits who took data from Tibet. And the same map is used during the Shimla Convention in 1914. And this is 1904, where British invade Tibet under the Young Husband expedition. And this map is showing the Riders' survey of Lhasa in detail. And then another map, 1910 by the Manchu dynasty, the general Zhao Wenfeng, he recognized come into planned district Xikang. And the Shimla Convention 1940, the red line indicates the frontiers of Tibet, and the territory lying between the red and the blue is referred to as the inner Tibet, and the territory towards the Lhasa is referred to as the outer Tibet. The Shimla Convention map shows Tibet defining its own frontier as a sovereign negotiating party. China later withdrew, but Tibet's signature remained. And in this slide, you can see the 8th month from October 1930 till 3rd July 1940. It took around 8 months of negotiation. And finally, Shimla Convention with the McMahon Lenchashatra, the line was initialized and signed by Tibet and Britain. 2 copies were made. One is with the Tibetan government in Lhasa, another with British India, but recently we heard that the map with the Tibetan government in Lhasa is no more at Lhasa. And this is the map showing the 1918 siege of the Chinese army by the Tibetan force in Chamdo. General Peng of the nationalist China, who led around 1,000 Chinese soldiers, surrendered unconditionally under the Kalun Champatentar, leader of the Tibetan army. So this was not a rebellion, but a battle victory by a functioning Tibet state. Another map by the Eric Thekman, who is the Counselor General of British India at the West China. He is negotiating between the Chinese and Tibetan to restore peace, and he traveled extensively around eastern Tibet and published this map in 1922. Then we look at the mid part of the 20th century. There is post-World War I to the pre-Chinese occupation. 3 maps that I want to show you. The first one on the top left is 1928 by the Sir Charles Bell, who is the British India civil servant, in his book, The People of Tibet. So he have come up with a Tibet map as this. And inspiring from this map is the second map, 1929, which is on the 2nd December 1929 edition of Melong, the Tibetan language newspaper published in Kalimpong, India from 1924 to 1965. They have shown this map. And the one in the bottom is from the 1970 map from the Tibetan government in exile in the book 10 Years in Exile report book. And this is the map done by the Rand McNally, who is the American cartographer. Just after 5 months when US entered into the World War II, they come up with this map showing the Tibet as completely different entity from the China. And this map shows within 15 years after 1950, Tibet was systematically re-engineered into counties, prefecture, and finally so-called autonomous region, a complete administrative remapping of the civilization. Then into the late 20th century, there is particularly in exile community in India and another exile diaspora, we see maps of exile through memory, resilience, and population and surveillance. So this is the first the map which is based on extensive interview with the Tibetan communities by the Changling Lobsang Sering and the Jeshun Lobsang Sutim. Both were former Central Tibetan Administration staff. They produced this map in 1981, the only map ever officially commissioned by the Tibetan government in exile. Unlike the colonial and the military map, this one was not drawn by the surveyor or a satellite, but by refugees, monks, traders, and elders who carries Tibet in their own mind. When territory was lost, Tibet mapped itself from the memory. The map that you saw just before this slide was actually inspired from the operational navigation chart, 1:1 million in measurement, was based on this map, and this was prepared and published by Defense Mapping Agency Aerospace Center in St. Louis Air Force Station, Missouri, US. And with the 1918 map, we see the series of map shown by the exile community. The left-hand side map is the relief map done by the Ngawang Thongme, who is the former Special Frontier Force in 1981. And the one on the right-hand side, top two are from the Department of Information and International Relations, published in year 2013. And the one at the bottom is the Tibet Museum, published in 2015. So since 2000, the Chinese census data no longer show Tibet as a single historical or cultural unit, fragmenting Tibet population figure across multiple provinces, making comprehensive demographic assessment nearly impossible. So many of the exile community now rely on this kind of ethno-linguistic map. This is the map published by CIA in October 1967, and the right-hand side top is the map researched and drawn by Peter Kessler, published by the Tibetan Institute of Recon, which shows the boundaries, religion, and the major location of Tibet. And one in the bottom are done by the Department of Security Research Unit in 1995, showing the prefecture, county, lakes, and rivers. So this is the current Kashak under the leadership of Sejong Pema Siringla has commissioned a Tibet map with the objective to counter China's cartographic aggression and its policy of changing the names of places in Tibet. So the image that you are seeing here are from the conference held in Sara and Dharamsala, and the map that you see here is from the Sringwange Shawala in 2014, showing the 2000 township map of Tibet. And the last slide is about the map showing the changing definition of Tibet over a period of time. We captured 1,300 years of Tibet history through different dynasty, empires, and centuries, and also after when Gandhi Photong took over, the map also got changed. So the concept of the modern nation or nationhood is very new, barely 200 to 250 years old. And the world that we see right now is changing very fast. So our core struggle is not just striving for just a piece of land, but rather our core struggle is to preserve and promote our unique and cultural heritage of Tibet, and also to safeguard the identity and self-determination of Tibet. I think this, above all, should not be lost. Thank you.